I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed over the last years that every time Gray Zone Warfare gets mentioned, somebody always tends to compare it to Escape from Tarkov. Sometimes it's Gray Zone is going to kill Tarkov, other times it's Tarkov is still miles ahead of Gray Zone. But after spending a lot of time in both games, I believe we've been asking the wrong question, because I don't think Gray Zone Warfare is actually trying to compete with Tarkov. Well, anymore. 0.1 was interesting. I think they're trying to give players two completely different experiences. And once I started looking at both games that way, a lot of the conversations around them suddenly started to make a whole lot more sense. Now, mind you, I'm not trying to create tension or a conflict in the comments here. I'm not trying to create an argument between both sides. I'm just trying to create a conversation between the two so people stop going into each kind of video or format of the game and just saying this game sucks or this game is better than the other, right? They each play their own way, and honestly, I think the Gray Zone Warfare demographic is an older age in players because they're want to play a more chill or relaxed gameplay. The amount of 60-plus-year-olds that I have ran into in the PvE experience, just trying to chill and have a good time that I've helped find and figure out tasks, is kind of awesome. Whereas in Escape from Tarkov, you don't really have that social aspect, and I think that also creates a very unique divide in the game types and how they execute what type of game they are. Now, to be fair, it's easy to understand why people compare these two games. They're both an extraction shooter kind of genre, not to mention that Tarkov is literally the grandfather of the genre, right? But both have realistic weapons, both made you think before you take a fight, and both punish, well, bad decisions. So on the surface, they look incredibly similar, and when Gray Zone Warfare was first announced, a lot of people naturally assumed it was trying to compete or become the next Escape from Tarkov, especially when it released when a time everyone was really upset about Tarkov because they released the Unheard edition, and that was a whole thing. And I assumed Gray Zone was going to try to replace the whole Tarkov scene. But the more time I've spent playing both of these games, the more I've realized that those similarities only exist at the surface level and have slowly drifted apart just based on updates and additions of the game. Once you've actually started playing them, they create completely different experiences, and I think that's where a lot of players either fall in love with either Gray Zone or bounce off of it to go play in Escape from Tarkov, or just keep going back between the two because they like the two different styles. So let's start with Tarkov, because there's a reason it's been the king of extraction shooters for so long. Every raid feels very important. You load in knowing that one bad decision can cost you everything. You listen particularly to footsteps. Every gunshot makes you stop and really think about what you're going to do next, and even finding a single rare item can completely change the outcome of your raid, like finding a Bitcoin. Tarkov is incredibly good at creating tension. Well, it's stressful, it's frustrating, and everything gives you those feelings of excitement and across the board. But when everything goes right, there really aren't many games that create that same feeling. That's the experience of Tarkov has built its reputation on. And honestly, I don't think Gray Zone can even replicate that feeling even close. Which brings me to Gray Zone. Gray Zone Warfare slows everything down. Instead of dropping into a raid with a timer counting down on you, which gives you stress, you're stepping into a persistent open world. You can spend an hour helping a friend complete tasks, you can explore new areas, run into another squad, help a random player who's bleeding out, or simply spend your session working towards the long-term contracts or long-term progression of the game. There's still danger, there's still a little risk, but the feeling is completely different. It feels less like a surviving a single raid, I have to make sure I get out and memorize my extraction, and it's more like living inside of a military sandbox. And honestly, that's probably why so many Tarkov players try Gray Zone expecting one experience, only to discover they're playing something completely different, which allows us to get into the nitty-gritty of it all. I think this is why most of the arguments begin online. Some players jump into Gray Zone looking for the adrenaline that Tarkov gives them every single raid. Others are looking for a slower experience where they can play with friends, explore the world, and take things at their own pace. Neither group is wrong, they're just looking for different things. And that's why you'll often see one player say Gray Zone is exactly what they've been waiting for in a tactical shooter kind of game, while another says it feels boring compared to Tarkov. The games aren't failing, the expectations are different. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons these conversations never seem to end. You'll have the Tarkov experience, which can be a tactical shooter, but most of the time when you're PvPing, it's a run and gun kind of style with the occasional sniper. Whereas Gray Zone is very tactical, you can't really run and gun. If you do, you kind of get punished way more than you would in Tarkov. So at the end of the day, I don't think Gray Zone Warfare needs to replace Tarkov. I don't think Tarkov needs to worry about Gray Zone replacing it either, because the more time I spend playing both of these games, the more I find myself wanting different things depending on the day or depending on the game. Some nights I want that intense high pressure experience where every decision matters. Other nights, I just want to jump into an open world with friends, complete some tasks, explore a little, and enjoy the slower pace. I think that's completely okay. The extraction shooter genre has room for both experiences. In fact, I think it's healthier because of it. Competition pushes both games to improve, but different experiences give players more reasons to keep coming back to the genre as a whole. To me, Gray Zone Warfare isn't just trying to become Tarkov, it's trying to become the best version of itself, and that's what makes the game very unique. And that's exactly what it should be doing at the end of the day. So obviously, I'm gonna end with, I'm curious. What do you guys think about it? When you boot up an extraction shooter, what are you actually looking for? Do you want the intensity and constant pressure that Tarkov creates? Or do you want the slower, more persistent experience that Gray Zone Warfare offers? Maybe you're like me, and it just kind of depends on the day, where I want to hop in the PvP and play a tactical shooter inside of Gray Zone and just take it at a slower pace, or I want to hop in PvE in Gray Zone and take it at a very slow pace and just kind of do my own thing. Now, mind you, PvE is also in Escape From Tarkov, and it is a slower paced game, but you still have that lingering intention of, well, you have to extract. You have that timer on your screen, which creates a little bit of, as I just said, tension. So maybe it is depending on your playstyle, or just kind of what you're feeling, or, I mean, a lot of us, it kind of depends on what your friends are playing at the time as well. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I have a feeling this conversation is going to have a lot of different opinions, so let's keep it civil in the comments. But I can't wait to read all of them, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.